In a small village in West Africa lived two brothers, Ade and Kunle. They were known for their hard work, but despite their efforts, they remained extremely poor. Their parents had passed away when they were young, leaving them to fend for themselves. Ade, the elder brother, took on the role of a caregiver for Kunle, ensuring that they had enough to eat, even if it meant he went hungry. The brothers' daily routine consisted of toiling on their small farm and taking on odd jobs in the village. However, their meager earnings were barely enough to sustain them. They often looked at the wealthier families in the village and dreamt of a better life. One day, after a particularly harsh season that left their crops ruined, Ade and Kunle sat under a large iroko tree contemplating their future. Kunle, frustrated and desperate, turned to his elder brother. Ade, we cannot continue like this. We need a solution. We need wealth to escape this misery. Ade sighed, knowing his brother was right. But what can they do? Kunle, we have tried everything within our power. Kunle's eyes suddenly lit up with an idea. I've heard of a powerful juju priest in the neighboring village. People say he can change destinies. Maybe he can help us. Though skeptical, Ade agreed. They gathered their few belongings and set out to find the juju priest, hoping for a miracle that would change their fortunes. The brothers walked for 2 days before they reached the village of the juju priest. They asked around and were eventually directed to a small hut at the edge of the village. The hut was adorned with strange symbols, and the air around it felt heavy with mystery. They were greeted by the juju priest, an elderly man with piercing eyes that seemed to look into their souls. "What brings you to my abode?" he asked in a deep, raspy voice. Kunle stepped forward, explaining their plight and their desperate need for wealth. The juju priest listened attentively, nodding occasionally. After a long silence, he finally spoke. "I can help you, but there is a price to be paid," the juju priest said. "To obtain wealth, one of you must sacrifice yourself." The brothers were stunned. Ade looked at Kunle, his heart heavy with the gravity of the situation. "If this is the only way to change our fate, then I will sacrifice myself for Kunle. But Kunle, promise me that you will take care of my family." Tears welled up in Kunle's eyes as he nodded. "I promise, Ade, I will honor your sacrifice and ensure your family is taken care of." With a heavy heart, the juju performed the priest, and Ade's life was taken. In that moment, a wave of prosperity and power washed over Kunle. He felt a strange surge of energy going through his whole body, and he knew that his life had changed forever. Kunle returned to the village alone, carrying the burden of his brother's sacrifice. As promised by the juju priest, Kunle's fortunes changed dramatically. He discovered gold on their land, and his newfound wealth brought him immense power and respect in the village. He built a house, bought new clothes, and enjoyed the luxury that he had always dreamed of. However, in the midst of his newfound wealth, Kunle began to forget the promise he made to Ade. He distanced himself from his brother's family, consumed by his own sources and desires. Ade's widow Sade and their two sons, Tunde and Femi, struggled to survive. They were shunned by the village, who saw them as a curse. They often went without food, and their clothes were tattered and worn out. Despite their dire circumstance, Sade remained strong for her sons, holding on to the hope that Kunle would remember his brother's children. Sade and her sons made attempts to reach out to Kunle, pleading for his help, but each time they were met with indifference and coldness. Kunle's heart had hardened and he had become blind to their sufferings, forgetting the little beginning. The juju priest, aware of Kunle's negligence, visited him in his grand house. Kunle, you have forgotten your brother's sacrifice and the promise you made. If you do not fulfill your duty, there will be severe consequences. Kunle dismissed the warnings, confident in his wealth and power. I have earned my fortune and I owe nothing to anyone, he replied arrogantly. The juju priest's eyes darkened with anger. You have been warned, Kunle. Your actions will not go unpunished. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. The suffering of Ade's family grew unbearable. Sade prayed fervently for a miracle, clinging to the hope that justice would be served. One fateful day, the juju priest, unable to bear the injustice anymore, decided to reveal the truth to Sade. He visited her humble abode, where she and her sons were huddled together, weak and frail. Sade, I must tell you something, the juju priest began. Your husband's sacrifice was meant to bring prosperity to both Kunle and your family. Kunle had betrayed that promise, and it's time for justice to be served. Sade listened in shock as the juju priest recounted events that led to Ade's sacrifice. Anger and sorrow filled her heart, but she also felt a glimmer of hope. What can we do? She asked, her voice trembling. The power of Ade's sacrifice can be reversed, the juju priest explained, but it will require great faith and determination. We must invoke the spirits to transfer the wealth and prosperity back to your family. Sade agreed, willing to do whatever it took to ensure her son's future. They gathered at the juju priest's hut, where he performed a powerful ritual, calling upon the spirits to right the wrongs. As the ritual progressed, a strong wind swept through the hut and the air cracked with energy. The juju priest chanted ancient incantations and Sade felt a surge of power. She closed her eyes, praying for the spirits to grant them mercy. In the village, Kunle's grand house began to tremble. His wealth and possession vanished before his eyes, leaving him with nothing but the clothes on his back. He was thrown into the street, bewildered and penniless. Meanwhile, Sade and her sons experienced a miraculous transformation. Their humble home was replaced by a beautiful house, and they were clothed in fine garments. The villagers witnessed the miraculous turn of events, realizing the truth, and offered their apologies and support. Kunle, now destitute, approached the juju priest in desperation. "What have you done to me?" he cried. The juju priest looked at him sternly. "You have reaped what you sowed, Kunle. Your brother's sacrifice was meant for the prosperity of both families. You betrayed that promise, and now you must live with the consequences." Kunle fell to his knees, pleading for forgiveness. The juju priest shook his head. "The spirits have spoken. Your fate is sealed." Sade and her sons flourished in their new lives. They used their wealth to help the less fortunate in the village, earning the respect and admiration of all. Tunde and Femi grew into strong, compassionate young men, carrying on their father's legacy. Kunle, on the other hand, learned the hard way that true wealth lies not in material possession, but in the bonds of family and the fulfillment of promises. He spent the rest of his days in poverty, reflecting on his mistakes and the price of his greed. The story of Ade's sacrifice and Kunle's betrayal became a cautionary tale in the village, a reminder of the importance of honor, loyalty, and the consequences of neglecting one's responsibilities. Years later, Tunde and Femi, now adults, continue to honor their father's memory by living virtuous lives. They ensured that no one in the village went hungry and worked tirelessly to improve the community. The juju priest, satisfied that justice had been served, passed away peacefully, knowing that the balance had been restored. His hut remained a place of reverence where villagers would come to seek guidance and remember the story of Ade and Kunle.